Welcome to my channel if you're new here. Welcome back if you're a returning viewer, subscriber. Today's video is really exciting because I'm going to be talking to you about the top 5 books that I've read so far in 2025. This video is actually going to be coming quite late because it is only the first quarter of the year. Yeah, I am a bit delayed in posting this. That is because I debated whether I was going to do this at all because I haven't actually read that many books this year. Last year I read 65, this year I set my goal at 50 and I'm already 2 books behind. Bit worrying, but it's okay. We're going to try our best to turn the reading wheel around. I feel like it has partly been because I've been reading a lot of long fantasy books which don't really lend themselves to quick reading and massive consuming of books, but they are titles that I've wanted to get to for a long time, such as Lord of the Rings and the tandem read from the Throne of Glass series. So on the whole I'm okay with this, but I really want to pick up some short literary fiction books. Not to be picking up the pace of my reading, but just because that's what my heart is craving right now. There's so little time in the world to read all the books and I want to be getting to them all, you know, so I want to start doing that over the next couple of months. But I did find that when I reflected back on January through March, there were quite a few books that kind of drew me back to how I felt about reading them, and books that had lingered or lived in my mind since I, turned that final page and put them down. So 5 books here, my top 5. We've got 1 5-star read, so not massively successful, but 2 4.5s, 1 almost 4.5 and a 4-star. That was very, very solid for. Also, I want to apologise for the lighting because it was a beautiful sunny day, full sun, no clouds in the sky, and now there's more clouds than there is sky. So, or there's more clouds than there is blue sky. So we will have the sun coming in and out, which is one of my least favorite things in the world, but there's nothing I can do about it, so I apologise for whatever happens lighting wise. Coming in at book number 5, my 5th favourite book I've read in the first quarter of 2025, we have Madonna in a Fur Coat by Sabahattin Ali. This is a piece of translated fiction from the Turkish, actually. Let's find out who the translator is. Translated by Maureen Freely and Alexander Dorr. This is such a beautiful story. It's one that hasn't really stuck with me in the sense that it's one I think about a lot since, but I think at the time it did feel quite impactful, and I'm really glad to have picked this up because I think I would have always been curious had I not. That is because this is a book that I saw all over the internet. It was so trendy all of a sudden. It's obviously a book that's been published for a while because it is in one of the Penguin Classics editions. I know that Turkish Twitter was really excited about the buzz of this book because obviously, like I said, this is a Turkish classic. It's basically following this younger man who sees this man who's working in his office and he thinks, what a loser, what a boring man who's like accomplished nothing, created nothing with his life that is of value or meaning. Yes, he's married and yes, he has a family, but he seems unhappy but also not dissatisfied. He seems kind of almost content with his life or content with the boringness that he's created for himself. And the youngest man really looks down on this older man until the older man falls sick and basically lets the younger man read his diary. Now, the diary recounts this love affair that the old man had with this woman here. She created a painting called Madonna in a Fur Coat, which is a self-portrait, which our older man fell in love with back when he was young. So the majority of the story is this love story between these two people, or this almost love story, this connection that they share and what that eventually turns into. The events of which the older man allows to dictate his life and therefore his life path, and kind of feel a bit resigned in that as well and not encouraged to start fresh or to move on or to create something with his life. So we see the reason why the older man is like that, but we also feel pretty terrible about the younger man because we see how he criticised and he came to conclusions and made opinions within himself about this person he didn't really know anything about at all. People can look a certain way from the outside, but everyone has so much depth within them and everyone is worth giving the time to. This was a really beautiful read. It was a solid 4-star. I didn't really feel like it was not a book I really loved, and like I said, I don't think it's really going to stick with me in years to come. Like, I didn't even bother annotating this one because I'm like kind of convinced I might eventually unhaul it later down the line, but I do recommend it. It's definitely a solid recommendation and I have heard so many good things about this. Do I think that this is a book that is not really worth the hype? I don't really like that phrase. If I was putting that aside, I'd say that yes, I do think that it's possible for a book to be very, very hyped and then someone to pick it up and really enjoy it, but kind of convince themselves that they loved it, like they adored it, which I feel like might not have happened had they not been swayed by other people's opinions. That's not to say that they didn't enjoy the book. I just feel like they could have amped up how much they enjoyed it. I liked this, didn't love it, but yeah, 5th favourite book of the first 3 months, so clearly had something good for going for it. And like I said, highly recommend. Very, very beautiful lines in here. It's very quotable. It's a really sweet story. It like kind of wraps up in a bow. It is sad, it's not a happy tale, but it is also almost like a fable in the way it's told, in the way it is capturing this person's life and the tale that it is kind of trying to weave in terms of outer commentaries on the story. Coming in at book number 4 is The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. Now this is actually a reread. This is the first book in the Stolen Heir duology. So I read this book in 2022, and this year I really wanted to pick up book 2, The Prisoner's Throne, but I found out that when I got to page number 1 of The Prisoner's Throne, I had no idea what was going on in it. So I decided to reread this one. I read most of it via audiobook, but I think they call it like immersive reading, when you listen to the audiobook as you're reading physically. That was because I wanted to annotate the book, because I actually started annotating it on my original read and then I hadn't continued. This time around I wanted to do that. Now this is a book that I gave 4.5 stars originally back in 2022. Then I dropped it to a 4, but I even debated dropping it to a 3.5 star rating, and that was delusional, because on the reread this was closer to a 4.5 than it was a 3.5. I did settle on a 4 still, but it's really kind of borderline. It would be a 4.25 if that was a thing within my rating system. This series, what is it actually called? Is it just the Stolen Heir duology? I think so. It follows on from the Folk of the Air trilogy. My mind is blanking. You know, The Cruel Prince, The Wicked King and The Queen of Nothing. Those were 5-star reads for me. I really truly loved them back in whenever I read them, like years and years ago. At this point, 2018 I think I started those. This is a follow-up series. I thought that I was going to love this as much as the original trilogy. I definitely didn't, but I still would recommend this series. I think it's so fun. So obviously if you're familiar with the Folk of the Air trilogy, we're set in fairy, but it's just an urban fantasy, I guess, because its characters do have the ability to travel to the human lands as well. This is a series that is full of court politics and these deviant trickster fairies. You know, they're so built on top of fairy folklore in the way that they can't lie, and they're always creating bargains with humans particularly, and there's so many different types of fairies within this world. But yeah, this series is so about the politics, and that's the reason why I really love the original trilogy, because it was just so cutthroat in a way that it feels almost reminiscent of how it used to be, the old English kings and the kind of fight for the throne and everything like that. So there's something kind of almost historical in this, but at the same time it's so transportative because it is so other because of this whole fairyland thing. And that's something that I've loved. You know, I've loved fairies since I was a little girl, so that is very much up my alley. This book follows Oak, who is the main character in the first series. It's her younger brother. So he's getting his own books, and it's about his relationship with this girl called Surin, who is also a fairy, how he kind of uses her, or she uses him too. So it's a lot about trust, it's a lot about kind of personal gain, and how much these characters really have the ability to love, I guess, as fairies. I didn't like the second book as much, but I still really enjoyed this one on the reread, so I feel like even though it's a reread, I enjoyed it enough to include it here. I don't know, it's kind of a tricky one. I don't love to include rereads, but sometimes it is necessary. Book number 3, we have The Happy Ever After playlist by Abby Jimenez. The Happy Ever After playlist is a really, really fun rom-com. So our main character Sloane has recently lost her fiance. It's been 2 years since his death. He died in a motorcycle accident. So she has a lot of kind of triggers surrounding that, but also she's not really allowed herself to move on from her grief, or to even live with her grief. She's so busy mourning him that she hasn't opened her life up to hope and even healing within that. Not to say that she should leave her fiance behind, but it's almost got parallels between this and Madonna Fur Coat. She's kind of resigned herself to believe that this is all her life is going to be, this sadness and this mourning. That is until she's driving along in her car, she has the sunroof open, and who jumps through her sunroof but a literal dog? That's crazy. Anyway, she eventually tracks down who the dog belongs to. Turns out he belongs to this famous musician, this famous singer-songwriter who's on tour in Australia. If you like the One of Us the Famous trope, this is it. It's a celebrity romance, you know, a lot of it is about like how he can balance like fame alongside his relationship and where she fits in. It's all that discussion. But the thing is with this book is there is a lot of depth to it, obviously. We're still following Sloane's grief journey, and there are also things going on with Jason, the main male character, as well. Now, usually with a romance book that had depth, that would be the reason why I like the romance book, because yes, it's fun and light and silly, but it also packs a punch and has something that I'm more invested in within the story than just the romance, because the romance I know they're going to get together anyways. That was not the case with this book. This book shone for me because of how silly and goofy it was. I feel like often in a romance book I find them difficult to enjoy because I find it difficult to suspend my disbelief. You have to suspend your disbelief in this one. She's literally dating a world famous rock star. This is for the music girls. This is for everyone who has a crush on some famous person. This is for the fangirls. We've got a fantastic playlist at the end of this as well, with basically every single band I love. So I highly recommend this if any of that sounds good to you. 4.5 stars. Book number 2. We have a lot of opinions on the internet about this one. This is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, the 3rd book out of 5, I believe, in the Empyrean series. So Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, Onyx Storm. I love Fourth Wing. It was a 5-star read. Probably it's a 4.5. I was probably being a bit generous or getting swept along with the hype like I was talking about earlier. Iron Flame I thought was fun. Yes, there were a lot of problems. Yes, I probably would have DNF'd it if I hadn't been so emotionally attached to every single one of the characters. But yeah, I don't know, I think there was worth in that, but I also don't think that was like the best book in the world. It definitely wasn't. Onyx Storm was also not the best book in the world, but it was significantly shorter than Iron Flame, and I feel like it had had a lot of editing having been done already, which was such a relief to see, because I feel like that was the main thing with Onyx Storm. It was just way too long, and it was obviously messy with the editing because of how quick the turnaround was between the author writing the book and getting it out to readers. Like I said, these books are not very good. I will give it that. They're fun. They are kind of addictive. You get kind of swept away in the story, but they're not brilliantly written. There are definitely plot holes. I'm so invested. I'm so obsessed with these characters. Like, I don't even care about the individual characters. It's like the whole story. I'm just like emotionally involved to the point where I literally cannot possibly rate this anything lower than like a 4-star. I just can't do it because I'm just like, yes, there's so many problems with this book, but also I'm so connected. I just don't think that's possible to be this connected to a book and to rate it poorly. I don't know, it's kind of confusing, but anyway, either way. So Fourth Wing follows Violet Sorrengail. She is set to be a scribe within this world at this war college, which is basically kind of like an historian or a librarian, that sort of person who documents part of like record keeping and things like that. Basically someone who's tucked away in the library and writing on their little parchment paper. That is until her mother, who's the general of the war college, is like, no daughter of mine, no child of mine will be a scribe. You have to be a dragon rider. So she's immediately thrown into the kind of not contest, like the trials to become a dragon rider. Oh, no, they're not even trials. They're like, basically she's training to be a dragon rider. It's very, very cutthroat. It's very, very intense. And Violet is obviously completely not prepared at all in any way for being a dragon rider. There's a big twist at the end of book 1. Book 2 kind of explores that a little bit, but also it's very much about the relationship between Violet and Xaden, who's the love interest in this story. Onyx Storm expands the world, and I feel like that was where this one felt so fun. We were definitely like going off and like going to other kingdoms, asking for help, that kind of vibe, and that is one of my favorite things in fantasy. So despite my reservations, this was a 4.5-star read and definitely a highlight of the year so far. It was also so fun being there for release day. That was definitely something that kind of helped me enjoy this book further, was getting swept along with everyone else. Being a book lover during such a huge release and being able to like pre-order the book and then start it with everyone else in the rest of the world, like the thousands of people who are also doing the same thing, felt really exciting. It also did take up a lot of my time. Those books are long. They're long and they also have very small font, so they take me a while to get through. But a book that was even longer than that and took me even longer to get through, it took me months, this one. So I actually finished it this year, but I read part of it last year. And also my number 1 favourite book of the year so far, and probably my number 1 favourite book of the year, full stop. Like, I don't know if anything could possibly top this. We have The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. When I say this is a perfect fantasy book, this is a perfect fantasy book. This is everything. It's absolutely epic. It is high fantasy. We're following this character called Kavoth. It's kind of like a coming of age story. We follow him from when he's very little, then we right up until he is in university and that whole experience as well. But his life is a journey. It's literally like this. And that's not even scratching the surface. He goes through the most horrendous things, but he's also a really unreliable narrator. We see from his POV how things went down, but we're also keeping in mind, bear in mind, that in the present timeline, so when he's an older man, he's recounting this tale to us, like in the present day, like while we're reading the book, looking back on it. So his memory's obviously patchy, though he claims to have a very good memory. Obviously, you would think that he'd be trying to embellish the story, so whether he's making it more dramatic or whether he's painting himself as a hero or something like that, we're not sure how much of this is true and how much of it isn't, and we know for a fact that this guy likes a story. In terms of fantasy series that I love, that I've rated 5 stars to kind of every single book in it, they're usually because I connect with something really deeply, whether it's a beautiful world or whether it's like a family trope, or the writing's really beautiful. This book had everything in it, but on top of that, it was fascinating. Like the actual plot and the story structure, I'm told that Patrick Rothfuss set about writing this book about 10 years before it actually was published. So much work and effort went into creating this masterpiece. If you enjoy fantasy to any degree, please do not be intimidated by the length of this book. It's long, it's like 650 pages, the font is tiny, but it's also life-changing. This like struck something deep within me. It connected with a part of my soul. It genuinely felt like there were moments in this that was slightly spiritual, and that's not me being like this was like a spiritual experience. It was like this got to the truth of life in this way that I've never felt fancy even like slightly connect with. I found that a little bit more in literary fiction or something like that, or in non-fiction, because it is about real life. But this book being about this different world, but also running alongside the, I'm gonna say like the bylines of life, like the life that we know, it was magical, and it was so special. This man's magnum opus. Am I upset about the fact that we have books 1 and 2 in this series but not book 3, and it's been over 10 years? Yes, slightly, but I think I said in my wrap up, even as a standalone, this book I'm so satisfied with. Yes, I know there's so much more for both to go through, and I'm really invested in his character. I feel like I actually like care for him in this deep way because of how much we've seen him suffer. I've come to love him, so I would like to know what happens to him eventually, and yes, I do plan on reading book 2, but I don't feel that devastated at this current point about the fact that we don't have book 3 because of how satisfied I feel having read this brick of a book. The Name of the Wind makes me like emotional because it's just 2. I don't know, it's just like a different plane from anything else I've ever read. So there we have it. Those are the 5 books, my top 5 books of the year so far, or the year leading up to March. We've had more favourites since then that I'm hopefully going to speak to you about in end of June. We obviously had such a mix of things going on here, but we had those 3 fantasy books, very different types of fantasy books, a YA, a spicy adult one, and then the absolute masterpiece that was Name of the Wind. But we also had a classic, we had a romance book. So I've been reading all the genres, but as you can see, you can kind of understand by these 2 books particularly, Onyx Storm and Name of the Wind, why I've been taking so long to read. You know, when you're annotating these massive books, it's not quick reading. Thank you so much for watching this video. I sincerely apologise for the lighting. I know it's been terrible. I've been seeing it change throughout the filming process. It has hurt my heart, but I've refused to comment on it because I already have, and there's nothing I can do about it. So if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe if you'd like to stick around and see more videos from me, see what I get to over the next few months, and if I can turn my reading year around and catch up to my Goodreads goal. But without further ado, I'm going to leave you in peace, and I'll see you so soon in a couple of days for another video. Bye bye.